All right, I'm gonna call to order. So I'm gonna call to order the May 7th meeting of the Burlington Development Review Board. I'm Adjourn, the chair of the DRB. We're going to proceed in the order of our agenda with applications. First, we have a relatively decent length agenda today, so we're going to try to be quick with it and direct. We'll deliberate on these, I suspect, this evening and issue decisions on our hearing items shortly. First item on our agenda is ZP 24-104-163 Maple Street. Is the applicant here? Mike is joining us briefly. So this was put on our consent agenda item. And does anybody on the board have an objection to treating this as a consent agenda? No. All right. So typically that means we're good. And do make sure that you have an opportunity to look at the staff report and plans of any issues or concerns you have with that. We do not. Okay. Then I move that we approve ZP 24-104. Brad seconds. All those in favor? You're welcome. We brought it.
Hey, we love it. Okay, thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is 140 North Prospect Street. This is a reopening of a application that we heard a couple weeks ago, back in April, I suppose. And I understand Brad, you're recused on this. So Brad's recused. We reopened specifically because under the ADA standards that we have to apply, we needed further additional information as to why it was not reasonably feasible to construct the wheel pad compliant, ADA compliant living facility in the rear of the home, and why therefore it needs to be placed in the side yard setback. Is that about summarize where we were?
And why inside?
And why what?
And why inside? Couldn't just inside.
Okay, so with that, and that is the singular scope of our reopening. We took a lot of testimony and heard a lot about the benefits for wheel pad. We understand it. We understand the site. We really just needed some additional information from the applicant and or their team. So is whoever wants to speak for the applicant, Jeff?
While they're coming up, can I just say two things?
Yes.
I was not here for the first hearing, but I did watch the video, so I'm speeding up the discussion that occurred. I also received 2 ex parte communications about this matter that I just want to disclose.
Yep.
2 neighbors, one emailed, I think actually both Sean and I, to express support for the project. We didn't engage in a substantive conversation with them. I had another call today asking to speak about the project, didn't provide their opinion, and said they would come.
Okay.
Disclose that.
Doesn't seem concerned, but thanks for telling us. So whoever wants to speak on this application, let's do it this way. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this application? Raise your right hand. Do you swear that testimony you're about to give is true and correct on the pains and penalties of perjury? Yes. All right. So whoever would like to just take the wheel for the applicant, come on up and tell us, fill us in on help us answer those last 2 questions. I don't know who wants to start. It's open to anybody. The floor's open. You tell us who you want to start with.
So
We're here tonight to ask for the zoning variance at 141 Prospect Street setback. The reason we are asking for this variance is for Sean to have a home to live. Where he has wheelchair accessibility to his grandmother's house, Marion Price. When, while he's not in university, i.e. winter break, holidays, and summer break, this variance is only for the duration of Hisham's higher education. Once Hisham is done with his education, or before the ownership of this property changes, we will return this property to the current state. The reason we have chosen the north side of this house to install the wheel pad is it is the quickest, the least expensive, the minimal disruption to Marion's life, seeing that Marion's life and Hisham's life have been unimaginably altered due to his paralyzed condition. The wheel pad could be easily backed into the side of the house without any major complication. Building this connection space is the less expensive scenario, would take about a week and would allow Hisham to move in June 1st when he is finished with his semester and rehab in Burlington. And this would still allow him to use the backyard for a safe outdoor rehabilitation space. We do acknowledge the other scenarios would comply with the zoning ordinance, but all of the other scenarios cost more, would delay Hisham moving in and disrupt the access to Marion's garage or backyard or the loss of her living room. Seeing that the zoning code is the community coming together to create a goal for a vision of Burlington, the community around 140 North Prospect has come together to support this variance for this project in the zoning code, as well as supporting Hisham through his rehabilitation after this horrific tragedy to our community.
So we have some updated plans, S201, S202, S301, and S401. I want to talk about those because I see your applicant comment, and I think it's very helpful. So S201 shows the first floor, right?
Correct.
And then S202 shows the changes that we needed to make it accessible.
Correct.
And this is a historic house or an old house?
It's an old house, yeah. So the current bathroom is not even 5 feet wide, which would be necessary to turn this wheelchair around.
So you need sort of extensive bathroom renovation, not just opening the door, but really reconfiguring the entire inside of the bathroom,
Correct.
plumbing changes and all that.
Yeah, right now it's backed up too, so we have to
Yeah.
main shower. And then we would need a bedroom on the first floor.
And I'm assuming all the steps and everything will also have to get converted.
Well, yes, bedroom on first floor,
I mean, I'm talking about the steps to the house.
yes.
Now, the steps into the house will need to be changed regardless, whether there need to be some sort of ramp or alteration to the entrance into the house, correct?
Correct.
So that,
And then as 301 and 401 deal with the idea of putting wheel padding back.
Correct.
So you say S301, if possible, to move the wheel pad into the backyard. Is there a question about whether or not you can even get it back there?
At that,
Like, is there a concern that because of the angles between the houses and the properties and the garage, it couldn't actually be backed into and located in the backyard?
yeah, from the driveway,
Can't do it.
can't do it, you could come through the back. But
Could you, I mean, like, is it backed in? I don't know if the wheel pad manufacturer does this. I mean, is it backed in on a trailer that has to then be turned around, located on site?
So for the current
in this current location, it would be backed in and it would remain right where it's backed in. If you were to try to get it into the back, it would be pretty difficult, and most likely you would have to take down, go through the neighbor's yard to the north, take down a fence, take down I think it's a pear tree
Plum.
that, plum tree, that is, you know, would have to be removed forever,
Would
right?
we even have the turning radius to back it into that?
It would be really difficult, to kind of back it into the 45, or, you know, to back around and then turn the degrees. And then, you know, so otherwise you could try to back in from the other street, but that's going through the neighbor's yard, tearing up the neighbor's yard.
Property, you don't control or applicant.
Yeah, the applicant doesn't control it.
I have a question about the preferred layout, so that's S 001. So one of the questions that we had last time was exactly what ramp situations look like. And this looks like the only layout for the ramp to get in, because I'm not seeing one on the front of the house, is on the neighboring property. Is that correct?
Correct, I mean, we can put it in the front too, but the neighbors also shown some.
That is something, right, we would need a separate application as a separate property to be able to.
If it's temporary.
Yes, yeah.
Separate. You can't encumber a separate property without either the applicant being that property or a separate permit. You can't extend one permit onto a neighbor's land. I mean, even though they're related, it's not gonna come as a surprise to everyone. It's from family, that's always a great.
I think we did ask for, last time I recall, we did ask for just where the ramp was gonna be located, even though it's not. in this process.
Right. You don't.
I have a just, I didn't see any numbers, okay, I think it's about numbers. I guess only for the main, did you do lot coverage, just numbers for the other layouts as well? I see the 38% on the preferred. But I don't see coverage numbers for the alternatives. I was curious if there was.
So ramps on.
Ramps are exempt from coverage. So
And now that the zoning changed,
I know the lot coverage is higher. Yeah, so
I don't think it will come to that, to the 45, I think it
I
is.
think they were all under.
Yeah.
I know part of this is this being a temporary structure. In order for the wheel pad to be situated in this setup, will there need to be a concrete pad or anything? Or will it just be sitting on?
Just sitting on papers.
Okay. Some discussion in your application about it being more expensive to do the other approaches. Can you tell us a little bit about the range of increased costs?
I mean, I didn't calculate all the ranges, but if you look at 101, it's a 12 square feet building connection. And well, 101 is in the driveway, which
It seems like, yeah, I'm more interested in the ones in the backyard. I think we all agree that the driveway ones won't work,
well,
so.
yeah, the one in the backyard, we would have to remove the current deck that's there.
Okay.
And then it'd be the exact same building connection. But then we'd have to remove a large window. And replace it with a smaller window and build it away. Comparative to just whether it is the one we want, there is a window, we remove that and have an opening so you can go through. And then the last one, the connection would be the foundation, not just bridging between the wheel pad and the house.
So we're talking tens of thousands of dollars difference, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think one with the foundation, it's
Any other questions from the board?
Did you have a specific design for a front ramp, and I think in the narrative, you talked about how if there were an interior renovation, the front door would need to be widened as well. Has that front door ramp been designed? In particular, because we can't really consider the ramp that's on the other property. I want to understand like what that would look like on the property as well. The front door ramp.
I mean, it would be similar to what the ramp looks like. We are one, but it'd be put in front of the house.
AJ, and the rest of the board, just a reminder. This is a variance request, put something in the setback. So if you greenlight it, then we need an application to actually do it.
Right.
Basically, we require 2 applications.
Understood, thank you. Right, that's the way we do it, variance comes, you know,
Is there a way to do a ramp in between the house and the new structure in your preferred layout? So that it's not on the adjoining property?
You know, stood out 6 inches on the left of the property.
He's asking about in between the wooden cabin and the house.
Yeah, in between the so coming up to the.
I'm guessing the turning radius is large enough.
I mean, the ramp needs to be 36 inches wide, so
Used to be what?
36 inches
3
wide.
feet, so you've got 3 feet there.
Exactly 3 feet.
Okay.
So if there's anything.
It also makes snow removal on the ramp quite difficult.
okay, does anybody in the audience wanna?
Can I just add that for the record, I am the owner of the house next door and I will fill out a permit for that ramp, but
Let's, I appreciate that. It's good, thank you for.
Can we get your name for the record for
Yeah.
just taking minutes?
my name is Richard Price and I live at 146 North Prospect Street.
Good afternoon, my name is Bob Duncan. I've been before this board many times in the last 50 years, although not all of you have been here as long as I've been here. I had some remarks that I wanted to make, some of which are not relevant now because you asked not to speak about things that you've already discussed. But I think I can offer some answers to some of the questions that you've asked. And by the way, I've only recently become involved through my having met RJ Adler at another conference. So I haven't met the family, but as a Burlington resident, certainly as a responsible citizen, I feel as though it's important for this community to figure out a way to make this happen. That we have, even though I think the staff recommendation to deny is correct in its analysis of the ordinance, I think we have a moral obligation to figure out a solution. To answer a couple of questions, one is that it would be in the many tens of thousands to put this in the rear yard. Any of you have been involved in any construction recently, nothing happens without spending tens of thousands of dollars. A renovation interior is also tens of thousands of dollars. Moving a bathroom, creating doors, creating accessibility. So I think that those points I could answer. I could also say to you that it's very unlikely that you could put a ramp in between the wheel pad and the house. That 36-inch clearance would accommodate a ramp. It would not allow for the approaches necessary to get into that connector. And the connector itself only really works if you're going from the house to the connector. To make a 90-degree turn from the connector to the house is not wheelchair accessible. So I think that point is clear. A front yard ramp is certainly something that's allowable in the ordinance, and I would be happy to assist the family in designing that ramp for them as part of the zoning application, should you grant this variance. The other point that I wanted to make is that, and some of you, I believe, were on the board at this time, city DRB in essence set a precedent several years ago by applying a time limit to the pods on Elmwood Avenue. And there were different reasons for why the time limit was applied. So that is analogous to this, but not the same. But I think the fact that the family has proposed something that is, even though it's a permanent structure that can be lived in year round, is essentially a temporary solution. And it could have a time limit that they're willing to certainly accept, as they've said, makes this an opportunity, I think, for you to be able to grant this variance in conscience, because it's not something that will to the property forever, as we know, zoning variances and zoning permits do. So I encourage you to think really hard about this and figure out a way to get past the bureaucratic or legal aspects of the ordinance and apply the kind of compassion that I think our community deserves to offer the stamp to figure out how to make this happen. And I think the time limit is an appropriate way to ask precedent in previous decisions. Thank you.
I ask one question.
Yes.
Standard we have to apply here, given the ADA issues, is one of reasonable accommodations. I'm just interested, you do a lot of work in this space. Looking at the restrictions on this parcel, what's being proposed, is this design, hearing what you've heard, strike you in your professional opinion as reasonable accommodation?
I think it is a reasonable accommodation. I haven't prepared an answer to that question, so I'm just off the cuff here. But something that would happen in the rear yard that would meet the setback requirements, clearly it's been demonstrated, is difficult, expensive, and to do. An interior renovation is also very difficult and expensive to do, and it creates a lot of hardship for the rest of the family in terms of trying to modify that space. So I think this is the most reasonable alternative they can come up with. That is not to say that they don't have hurdles to overcome with the building inspector. Okay, the wall is close to the property line. There are issues around fire ratings and window penetrations and so on. So yours is not the first hurdle that this family has to overcome, but they can't go to the next step unless they know they have the opportunity to go to the next step. But I think it's a reasonable accommodation.
My name is Betty Jack Sobel. I live across the street from Marion Price, and I know Hisham and his family from some years. And I'm here really because it's my heart that moves me. And I understand this is technical. I understand the restrictions, that the city has expectations about how buildings are placed. But I want to say that this, the city doesn't have to do anything because Hisham was shot in our city. But he was shot in our city, he was shot in my front yard, in our front yard. And this has affected all of us. I'm interested in seeing this happen in Marion's side yard, which I'll be able to see directly from my front door. To welcome Hisham here, to give him a modicum of dignity and privacy and independence, and to help heal him from this thing happened in our city. And so while I appreciate the technical details, I can't emphasize enough the importance of our humanity, all of our humanity in addressing this. This is a terrible thing that happened in our city. It has had repercussions beyond my front yard, beyond our city, in the United States. People know about Hisham in the world because it happened in Burlington. And who could imagine that happened? Well, can Burlington, Vermont come around and address the technical issues, but also reach deep into their human selves and welcome Hisham home to a safe space in Burlington? Any questions?
No, we appreciate it.
People stole a lot of my thunder, but I'll attempt to modify my comments here. Thank you very much for being here and for doing what you do. My name is Scott Baldwin. I live at 132 North Prospect, 2 doors down from the Post Project. We're in a great neighborhood up there. And I'm not gonna, some of my comments, we're gonna talk about the history of the horrible act that happened on our street, but so I'm gonna cut those out because you know it. The permit you're being asked to approve for this young man's grandmother's attempt to provide for normalcy in a totally disrupted life in a handicapped compatible space for her grandson to stay when he's not at school at Brown University. You'd have to look pretty hard in Burlington to find anyone in Burlington or the close vicinity of folks that would not be in favor of your granting a variance for this, on the setback requirements for this project. Rich, the uncle of Hassan, who's the son of Marion, lives next door. He's already said that he's willing to, I understand the technicalities of putting that ramp up the middle. There's also snow issues, but in order to pass, he certainly is total support, and they will accept conditions to remove this trailer as soon as Hassan no longer needs it. And if something else happens where they move or whatever, as far as changing the property back to its original state. If the concern of the board is that this setback variance sets a precedent, I'd like to offer the exception to the rules in exceptional circumstances supported by the community is a good thing. It's a very unusual situation. I sat where you all sat for 11 years, a few years ago. And I've never, in my whole time on your side of the table, never saw a project of this kind of this consequence or of the impact on the city, what happened on that prior, just after Thanksgiving last year. Given the circumstances, there's limited time for the project completion in order to accommodate Hassan, which we all know. Common sense and empathy, in my opinion, would dictate that you grant a permit citing the wheel pad where it's requested with conditions on removal so that Marion can bring her grandson to a safe place. I know there's technicalities, but it seems to me that we ought to be able to get the other permit can be filed, and I would hope that I don't know if there is, I can't remember by the time, if there's some way of waiving the 30-day zoning warning, but certainly they could get moving on the project if you gave the permit that you did, and I'm assuming they'll ask forgiveness down the road. So, thank you.
Thank you. Right. Well, thank everybody for that.
Yeah, folks on Zoom as well.
Okay, who's on Zoom? Is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to be heard on this? Mind you that I think we've gotten very good testimony. We understand. Certainly, I'm sure I speak for all of us, understand the nature of the project and the cause of the project. We took substantial testimony on that the first time and reopened for a very technical reason. Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to address that technical reason?
So we have one hand up. If anyone else wishes to speak, raise your hand. Carter, Ward 1 City Councilor, you're up.
Well, I didn't let you finish speaking. I'm not going to address the technical. I just wanted to highlight the letter I submitted along. Hopefully that supporting that we can hopefully grant this variance and appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness and certainly understand and appreciate the work of folks making this decision and city staff. But I think yeah, just at a basic level, I think it's just the right thing to do. So appreciate your time, appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness, and I won't take up more time.
Thank you. Okay, so I think with that, close the public hearing and deliberate on this. All right, thank you.
The next item on our agenda is ZAP 24-3, 3234 Hickok Place. Appeal of administrative denial to replace existing slate roof with asphalt shingle with installation of solar panels. And can I get everyone who's here to speak on that application to raise their right hand? Scott, who's taking this one for the city? Mary. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is true and correct and the pains and penalties of perjury? Yeah. All right, so this is an appeal of denial. And we ask that the city present the basis for the denial. So I understand here that there's an additional basis for why we should uphold the denial. And that is whether or not the appeal was properly or duly filed. So return to the city, Mary.
Thank you. There's a great deal of information that was uploaded relative to this appeal. We can divide those into 3 sections. One is the original decision, which was denied administratively. The second was the appeal. And the third issue is everything that was provided after the end of the appeal period. I would like to speak directly about the appeal first. This will be a stepped decision or a full stop. That is its first section. So the administrative decision was made March 22nd. An appeal was entered into OpenGov on March 27th. And the fee was paid for the appeal. There are required submission materials for an appeal. That includes the name and address of the appellant, a description of the property, a reference to the regulatory provisions that be applicable to the appeal, the relief requested and why such relief is proper. With this appeal filing in OpenGov, there were no submission documents. There was a narrative provided under the appeal description, and the prompt there is, what are you appealing and under what provisions? I have included that material as a PDF to you so you may see what was added. So the first issue would be no submission materials, and the second is the appellant. People that are interested parties that may appeal a permit are a person having title to the property, the city of Burlington or any adjoining municipality, people owning or occupying property in the immediate vicinity that has suffered some consequence that they can demonstrate some physical impact, any 10 persons who might demonstrate some impact, the state of Vermont, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, or the Conservation Board. None of those meet the qualifications. Those are the interested persons. The appellant here is a contracting company. So I do not see that a qualified interested party had filed the appeal. So although the appeal was filed timely and the application fee was paid for the appeal, there were no submission documents and the appellant did not qualify as an interested party. So the first question for the DRB is, if this appeal has not been perfected, it should be dismissed.
So Mary, can I follow up with that?
Certainly.
We have something in our file called an owner's signature and consent. That says property owner signature authorizes the applicant, if noted, to act on owner's behalf for all matters pertaining to the zoning permit application. Signature also consents to the proposed work and to inspection by city zoning staff to close out the project. That form has the owner, Frank Swayze, and Lewis Creek Builders on it.
For the original permit.
And what's the original permit?
The project description?
Is that, yeah, replace slate roof with asphalt shingles.
Correct.
And so isn't the appeal, just I'm thinking through this, is the appeal not an appeal of the denial of that proposed project?
The appeal is a denial, administrative denial of that project. However, the property owner did not sign the application for an appeal.
Right?
Can you read that language again? That all.
Property owner signature authorizes the applicant to act on owner's behalf for all matters pertaining to this zoning permit application. And the applicant is Lewis Creek Builders and the owner is Swayze.
The owner is not. The owner is not Chris Swayze.
Is this Frank Swayze?
Correct.
He's the one who
There are
signed.
three owners, yes.
Is there any question that Lewis Creek wasn't acting on the landowners? I mean, they're described as their agent. Is there any doubt that they were not acting on the landowner's behalf?
My communication was all with their representatives. Our planning technician did request additional information within the appeal period and none was received.
When that information was requested, were instructions provided on when the due date was for those additional materials?
The appeal period is provided on the decision. So the appeal fee was paid March 27th. On March 28th, our planning technician requested more information.
Who was the denial sent to? Sent by email, right? That's how we send them out?
Well, we send an electronic copy to the applicant and we send a certified copy as well by mail.
Was the electronic copy sent to Lewis Creek or the Swayzes?
Lewis Creek.
Yeah.
On open government, does it, I don't know if you have the screen where you file the appeal, does it ask for all that supporting information on
On an appeal?
an appeal?
It
So
does not.
So
But
the
the
open,
directions for an appeal direct to the correct standards and ordinance.
so the appeal on open government has just a few fields, including this description of the appeal. Is there a place on OpenGov where you could actually file those supporting documents, like in your initial appeal?
Yes, there is an attachment option.
Yeah, so, and then, okay, so. But even if the appeal was timely. The city denied the application for conversion of a portion of the historic slate roof to asphalt shingles, right?
The administrative denial was asphalt shingle or slate asphalt shingle. That was denied.
Can you walk us through the basis for that tonight?
Now you're getting into the merits. Before we step into that, I need to understand if you feel this appeal was effective.
Well, we'll consider that in deliberate. And we'll
So
let the applicant talk about it. I think we want to hear about the merits.
So you're ready to step into the merits.
Yes.
You have in front of you the reasons for denial.
Okay. Yep.
I understand the historical preservation perspective. How did the fact that it was to facilitate installation of renewable components factor into your analysis, or did it at all?
Well, I'll say yes and no. We still have an obligation to follow the standards of the ordinance, Articles 5 and 6. We begin with this request for a change in materials for a listed historic structure. There is not a prohibition to replacing materials, but the standards of 548 give us direction. It's not without precedent that we have approved removal of any historic materials if it can be demonstrated they've reached the end of their serviceable life and that an appropriate replacement can be identified. Now I'm stepping away from the renewable conversation, just the replacement of materials. So the review of those standards under 548, as well as Article 6, were the basis for the reasons of denial. The applicant did provide an assessment, which we require for a slate request for slate roof removal. The assessment was made by email from a private Gmail account, not on any letterhead, which we would typically see with a professional assessment. The nomenclature didn't suggest that there was a good understanding of roof components. So we have an opportunity that we've exercised in the past for a second opinion if there is a request to remove a characteristic feature in an historic building. Two of the slaters that I spoke to had worked on the property. One of them provided an assessment believing that wholesale removal was not yet warranted because with immediate repairs, it was still serviceable. And that was the basis for our assessment, was a secondary assessment made by someone qualified to make such an assessment on the material.
And is, given that the zoning ordinance, one of the, someplace in there encourages using alternate energy sources, such as solar.
Mhm.
So on one hand, the ordinance is encouraging the use of solar panels on the roof is typically where we're going. So is there any consideration of how that impacts this other aspect? So sort of somewhat, not necessarily in conflict, but the influence.
Well, you are correct, you know, that we have standards that address both of these desires. They're not mutually exclusive, which was why the staff decision referenced the guidance policy for net zero energy that was published almost 3 years ago. And it does include information about consideration of new equipment towards a path of net zero energy. And there is guidance about installation of solar. I've included that at the end of my staff report. And although it's recognized, this guidance policy is not regulatory, but it does recognize that these can be challenges. Exploration of alternatives is recommended, and siting of any mechanical equipment on a historic building is as important as consideration of installation.
I have a question about the scope of the original permit, because the denial is before us just as the replacement, and it says it's for the purpose of solar panels, but did the original permit actually include a request for approval for the installation of solar panels with the design of that layout?
With a design for the solar panel?
Yeah, like, did you have that level of detail, or is it more a theoretical future
No,
installation?
you're looking at the images that were provided in that application.
There's no actual solar installation application.
Okay.
Yes.
And then in the pictures, it also looked like a significant portion of the roof has already been removed. Is there any explanation of that provided in the application?
I can only note that the photographs that were submitted relative to the roof failure were taken November 2nd, 2023. This application obviously came in many months afterwards. When we did engage a qualified slater to go out, and I informed the applicant team, the roof was tarped that day. So the gentleman that was making the assessment went 3 times to make the assessment because the roof was tarped before he got there. It wasn't that he didn't perform his work, it's that he was unable to until the team from Lewis Creek removed the tarp, and they only did a partial removal, so he could look at what was there.
The issue is not the new metal, it's slate to asphalt.
A change in materials from an historic material, so slate to asphalt. Look, the last information I'll provide is when I shared this information about my concern with the expiration of the appeal period, I did receive multiple submission documents on the appeal folder in OpenGov, all of them after the expiration of the appeal. So the appeal expired April 6th, that's a Saturday, we would have carried it to the 8th. And all the other submission materials came in after.
There's a letter in the file dated April 11th from Lewis Creek Builders.
April 11th, April 16th, and April 18th.
And those are all after the closing of the appeal period, correct?
Yes, they are.
And there was a request for more information made after March 27th, before the appeal period ended on the 9th.
March 28th.
And under our zoning standards for replacement of materials, do we consider the cost difference when the historic property is at issue? I don't recall that being relevant consideration.
We don't have standards for economic feasibility.
Go back to the renewable energy question briefly. You're done, AJ?
I'm done.
I'm trying to understand, there's a provision in state law. Title 24, 22, 91A. Says notwithstanding any other provision of law, the contrary, no municipality by ordinance, resolution, or other enactment shall prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the installation of solar collectors, clotheslines, or other renewable energy devices based on renewable resources.
What provision is that?
24, section 2291A.
I'm quite familiar with that.
Yeah. So how do you
The
see that
preamble,
applying
the
here?
preamble to this is the request was loss of historic material. Replacement with more modern material. So solar panel installation was. It was understood that was the intent, but it's.
But they
it's not
would-
part of the decision.
They wouldn't apply to the city for solar panel installation. They're not required. So it shouldn't be part of the application.
Subsection
It's 2291A.
A.
Yeah. Like A.
Yeah, title. Yeah, I saw. I was on for 6-5.
Yeah.
The applicant's question mark, I guess, appropriate. Would you mind coming up? You raise your right hand. Could you introduce yourselves? Who's who? And
I'm Francis Swayze, property owner.
then you are.
I'm Chris Swayze, I'm the owner of Lewis Creek Builders, and I'm also a friend.
Okay, so that's interesting. So are do you own a portion of the property?
No.
Do you own any of Lewis Creek Builders?
No,
Okay.
I did, but I sold at the end of last year, so I do not at this time. And at the time of the request for the permit submission, I did not own any of those.
So I do want to keep it in the same order, because I think Mary was very right to present it this way. I do want to give you an opportunity to respond to the city's argument. The appeal was either untimely, perhaps that's the wrong phrase, or incorrectly filed by a non-interested party. So you heard the city's argument. What's your response to that? I think we'll all have some questions.
And thank you. I do want to clarify that while
The application was submitted without Frank's signature. It was filed in discussion with Frank, in full disclosure of intention, and we really were acting as Frank and Mary's agent on that front. Our application, it is 100% our responsibility to make absolutely sure that it is a complete and full application. We really thought we had fulfilled that. It's a very unfortunate mistake on our part. The request for additional documents we received and we thought we had fulfilled by providing the letter that is on file. We got notice of additional gaps after the appeal period had closed, and that unfortunately is a lesson learned for us that we'll have to be more careful about that moving forward.
Or what the gaps were
The gaps.
Yeah.
The property owner's signature was the primary missing piece, as far as I know.
Is there an opportunity now? It's all electronic on OpenPub. What's the portal like? Could you describe it to us when you go onto it?
It's a pretty good database.
But for filing the appeal, how does it work? Do you click through or the boxes?
I didn't personally file the appeal, so I wouldn't be the right person to. I didn't actually hit send on the. Who did? I believe it was Emily from our team.
Somebody in your office. Do you know if there's any, like a box or click, do you have landowner's approval or anything like that?
I can't imagine that we would have missed something like that.
In your communications with the city after filing the appeal, at any point, did someone from the city ask if you were representing the owners?
Not in the time period of the appeal.
And there is another form, a owner consent form. Do you remember filling that out?
I did not personally.
Do you remember filling that out?
I remember signing as well as you can sign with a mouse on a computer. To submit the permit.
And that permit. What was your understanding of the consent you were giving?
That Chris and his company would represent me to the city and take care of getting the permit through the process. Do whatever was needed.
Did you think that included the appeal process?
Yes, I did. They also had my permission before they filed the appeal.
You, Goose Creek, you filed appeals on behalf of people in the city of Burlington before?
We've never had to file.
That I can recall. Yes. Whatever, I mean, just take it wherever you want.
Well, I have a question. I mean, the application talks about alternate drivers, solar panels. Is that the driving force for the change to the roof? Or is it the age of the shingle?
Right now, if we could repair the roof, we would. The reason that the roof was targeted in the first place is because it was leaking. We attempted to enact a repair with Paul Slater, Ed Major, who has a letter on file. He's repaired church steeples as a trade for 12 years. He's worked in slate roofs, and we trust him explicitly. He has been through that roof forward and backwards, and he's determined that no amount of patching is going to stop it from leaking because of it. And so that was a decision to do an all stop, because we can't authorize a full replacement of the roof without understanding options, because investing in a full replacement to stop it from leaking, I mean, we have to have a roof on that historic home that's not going to leak regardless of winter repair. And we won't have that without a full replacement. If we invest in a full replacement of the slate, then we're losing the opportunity to put solar panels on. So right now, we do not have an estimate for a full solar system, but that would be an immediate next step. That's not my money that would pay for that, it would be Frank's.
I have a question on the selection of asphalt roof in particular, because one of the considerations when we have roofs, different materials, it often has to do with longevity and similarity in some cases. And asphalt roofs are to not have longevity of slate roofs, and you talked about why asphalt was selected as the material for the install.
I would say it was the first choice of the client for a balance of aesthetics and economics. We're totally open to other materials that might.
Have you looked into or is there an option for remote system of like a group net metering? Is there anybody that offers that?
I haven't looked into that.
Or if that exists, I'm not sure if it's feasible. Running to Burlington because it's Burlington, right? Not sure. Would be something we could. Also, there's a certain number of square footage of solar panels that works for a single family home like this or complex. With the panels around the porch. Satisfy that?
Yeah, without a system design. It's fair to say that the purpose of the project is to replace the roof. Solar panel may be an add-on, but it's not the driving the project. You need a waterproof roof first. And then you consider solar. It's not, we need a roof that will be solar. So drive the project. Whereas solar drive first.
The driving force for me is protecting my wife's doll collection from the roof. And the second driving force is that the city is marching forward with, we'll install heat pumps. And I can't afford the electric bill to do that, so I need solar panel to offset the electric. And solar panels, the companies I talked to said, we will not install them, so yeah. And that's the slate roof, as far as I can tell, is 135 years old. Because the building was built in 1888.
I have a question for Mary. The email that came from staff asking for more information. Do we have that in the record?
I included in the staff report.
Any other questions from the board? Is there anybody online who wants to speak on this application?
And
Okay, Brad's got a question.
Just in terms of placement of solar panels. Say we talk to a solar supplier, installer, how do they throw a metal roof, asphalt roof, other options besides, do slate, but other roofs they would do with any advantages or disadvantages?
no, they did not. I'm in Burlington. I have a historic property and it has a slate roof. They said, yeah, get your roof replaced. We'll talk to you, but get your roof replaced first.
They didn't give you any advice or comfort other than not slate.
Yeah.
And the lower part is metal. What kind of metal is that?
There's a galvanized band at the edge of the roof, sort of snow band 3 feet up the roof. I think it's 3 feet. I'm speaking from memory. The porch roof is a rolled asphalt.
The metal band, assume the slate, taken up, the slate must have overlapped the metal band.
Yes.
That metal band's been there for a while.
Been there as long as I've lived in the house, and I've been in for over 30 years.
It's in good shape.
It's rusty, but as far as we can tell, it's not leaking.
So the asphalt shingles on the porch, when, do you know when those were? I'm guessing they were not asphalt shingles.
No, it was a rolled asphalt roof originally. The shingles that are there were installed in 2020. We had a permit come through to put a dormer on the porch roof to redirect the snow that comes off the upper roof and thunders onto that porch and split it so it wouldn't bury the steps. We were afraid we were going to kill our inmate. This picture shows the roof. It looks like there's something between the wood
board slash sheathing and the slate. And rain is the issue, right? If there was icing water shield between the boards and the slate, would that alleviate the water issue?
It would, and unfortunately, that would also require us to pull all the slate off the roof to install that layer and reinstall the slate. And the roof could be redone in slate and be waterproof. The challenge is economics and obliterating the opportunity for solar.
Well, this will be an interesting deliberation, so with that, we'll close the public hearing. The last item on our agenda is ZP 2460 Charlotte Street. And it's applicant here.
We have the applicant online.
Right. So, Mr. Bellavo, if you would, is there anyone else here who wants to speak on this application? Okay, so would you raise your right hands and repeat that? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is true and correct and the pains and penalties of perjury?
That's directed at me.
Right. So, Mr. Bellavo, could you just walk us through what your project is? We have a staff report and some maps and plans. Just explain what you'd like to do, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
So it's a currently permitted triplex. The idea is, as you can see, what's on the screen right now is to, well, if you can see that the original is a one-story rear addition that was put on the building. It's not clear exactly when, but the idea would be to take the to remove a section of the rear one-story roof and construct, as you can see in the picture here, a second story on the back of the building, and extend the size of the unit in the upstairs. So the two units in the downstairs would remain relatively the same, and we would extend the size of the apartment in the top floor with the additional square footage afforded by putting the second story on the back. And we would also, at the same time, the building is right now is essentially, yeah, you can see in the purple here, that's the proposed addition in the back of the building. We, you know, to extend the size of the upstairs apartment. A couple of windows, we want to put an additional window in the dormer in the front. We would, per suggestion of the DAB, also put a landing on the front of the building. Right now, there's just a step down out of the porch and down a set of cement steps. We would remove those steps and put in a landing and then steps, a 4x4 landing because it's a commercial building, and then put steps down from that landing to the existing sidewalk down to that ultimately intersects with the city sidewalk.
We have a public comment, I figured I'll address it, that has some concerns about snow and ice shedding off the building. Do you see that?
Oh, onto the front, meaning onto the proposed rock, we had proposed a set of rock steps in the front of the building, replacing the cement ones. Is the comment regarding that?
No, it's about snow and ice shedding off the roof and I guess maybe onto neighboring property. I know that's a common issue in Burlington. And it was requesting that some snow and ice shield be placed along the roof edge. Is that something a comment you've seen or request that was made to you at all?
No, that request has not been made to me. I am not the owner of the property. I've got a purchase and sales with the owner, so I'm not sure if that was made to the owner or, but I haven't seen that comment.
What I'd imagine. Is that something you would object to if we included that to prevent snow and ice shedding off?
I mean, if that's a requirement, then you're talking about one of those like a fence, kind of like something that I mean, this is proposed as a asphalt roof. I don't know if the shedding happens like that, but you know, if that's a contingency, then I can certainly consider it.
Is it an asphalt roof?
Well, we haven't, we aren't,
Or is it?
sorry,
Are all the shingles on this roof asphalt shingles, or are they slate?
currently it's asphalt shingles.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions from the board? Sign and plans.
So I see, just looking at an overview, I'm guessing it looks like the driveways there's two driveways. One on the south side of the building and then one on the north side. Both are abutting very closely. I'm guessing the driveway associated with the building is the south one. Is that correct?
I believe,
Yes,
south, yes, you're right.
Do you have the pitch of the new proposed roof?
I don't have it offhand, but I don't have it offhand. I know it's, I don't know, it's something in around, that looks like about a 412, but I'm not 100% sure.
Do you know if the pitch is changing from the current roof line of the addition?
I believe, well, right now it's lopsided.
Yeah.
So I think that between the pitches, if you could, there are pictures of this rear roof. Is that possible to bring those up? The existing?
We have them.
Yeah. So, there you go. There's the current pitch, and the steeper of the two pitches. I don't think we're changing the pitch of that piece to the in this picture to the right, the north. I don't think we're changing that pitch. So, I'm not sure what the complaint would be.
Yeah. You've raised your hand, you want to come up and introduce yourself? Yeah.
My name is Joy Morrison, I live to the north of this property,
So-
Charlotte Street.
Are you the neighbor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if I'm looking at that photo, are you to the right or to the left?
To the right, you're looking at the back of.
Yep. Yeah.
Mr. Bellavo, it's nice to meet you, I would have liked to meet you in person. So my concern is that we have had snow come off and ice come off that roof. No one was injured, but we did, ice did break a headlight on our car that is parked there once. My concern is that the height of the building with the additional story, as well as the slope of that side being higher. My concern is that the snow coming off the roof, falling on the driveway, would happen more often. I may be wrong about that. When we've been there shoveling in the winter, we've had snow come off and get out of the way. Now we have a 5-year-old and 7-year-old granddaughter who's around a lot. So we're just concerned. And so what we're asking respectively, if we would consider putting an ice and snow shield on that part of the roof that is adjacent to our driveway.
Well, certainly, yes, the answer is yes, we can do that. It's not, yeah, I'm trying, the term is what I'm stumbling over, it's, but yeah, I know what you mean, it's like a dam, that you stops the coming off in one, sheet.
Right.
Right.
Usually like 3 bars on a little thing gets attached to the roof.
Yeah, just- We would feel just safer and more comfortable if there was something there. It's just the height is what's causing concern.
I just got a question for you on that, just because it's hard to tell from this photo. But you're saying your driveway is between this property building and your, so the
My
back of the
prop-
house,
This is my garage here.
yeah,
So my house is there. My driveway is right there.
okay,
There's barely like.
Yeah.
Between the driveway
Yeah.
and
It's the street.
the house.
It-
Yes,
it
that's
looks-
my driveway.
okay, got it, thank
So
you.
it's like. It's not a whole lot.
And you're getting snow coming off on the rear.
We get snow coming from here to there to.
Yeah.
To here.
When it snows.
Hey, maybe we won't have to worry about this then.
Probably ice too.
Sorry,
Probably ice as well.
It's not just.
oh yeah, there's ice coming from.
I just would reserve one, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, with asphalt roof shedding snow quickly or if it's a slow shed, but I'm also aware of with asphalt shingles, damming up snow and creating the potential for ice buildup under shingles can produce leaks. So I would just, what I would say is I really want to work with our neighbor. I just don't know exactly what that looks like on an asphalt roof. I've not seen that kind of dam on an asphalt roof before, but I imagine there's something that stops it from coming off, but it can also, if it dams up under asphalt shingles, it can the ice can form under the shingles and back up and create leaks. So I just need to be clear on exactly how that works with an asphalt roof. But I think, mitigating the snow shedding in a sheet into the driveway is something we can definitely look into.
Thank you. That's pretty much what we'd ask for, is to work together on finding a solution that we can both live with.
Be happy to work with you.
Thank you. And please do stop by if you're in the hood at some point.
Yes, I would love to. Like I said, I'm just in the process of purchasing the building, and I've been in and out of the building, but not any kind of regular visits there. But I would like to stop by and meet you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
that was nice. So I think with that, we'll close that public hearing. And that was our last agenda item, so we're adjourned.